Welcome to Law of One Wisdom. Today we're diving into session 1. And picture this for a second. It's January 15th, 1981.
Right.
You've got 3 researchers sitting in a quiet, totally unassuming living room.
Just a normal house.
Yeah, exactly. And a voice speaking through one of their closest friends just casually informs them that the entire material universe, like the room they're sitting in, their own bodies, the earth beneath them, none of it actually exists.
It's quite the opening statement.
Right. It says it's all just a thought. So here on our deep dive today, our mission is to sort of bypass the typical spectacle that usually surrounds these channeling stories.
Yeah, we're not doing the paranormal ghost story thing here.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
We aren't here to debate the mechanics of that living room. We want to thoughtfully extract the core philosophy from this foundational text. We want to understand what it actually means to exist as a, quote, dancing thought.
I love that phrase.
Same. And, we want to look at how these really profound concepts can completely reframe your own path of seeking.
And I think to do that effectively, we really should first establish who is actually speaking and the specific historical gravity of that room in 1981.
Let's set the stage.
Yeah, so there are 3 individuals present, and they have dedicated decades of their lives to seeking the truth about human existence and consciousness. You have Don Elkins, who acts as the questioner.
And Don brings this very probing, almost scientific rigor to the whole conversation.
Very much so. He's very analytical.
Yeah.
Then you have Carla Rueckert, who serves as the primary human instrument, the channel herself.
Right.
And Jim McCarty acts as the scribe and the energetic support for the group.
But the real focal point of this first session is that dynamic between Don's intense questions and the source that's speaking through Carla.
Right, a source that introduces itself simply as Ra.
And the way Ra defines their own existence is, it's honestly the first major philosophical hurdle of the text.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they don't claim to be, a singular deity or like a lone spirit guide from beyond or something. They describe themselves as a social memory complex.
Which is a phrase that requires a bit of unpacking.
Yeah, please do.
Because it really sets the scale for everything Ra says afterward. So a social memory complex, as Ra describes it, occurs when an entire planetary population, like a whole civilization, evolves to a point where all of their individual memories and thoughts and experiences, they all become completely available to the whole.
That is hard to even wrap your head around.
Right. Imagine a civilization where all polarities and, hidden agendas just drop away.
Like total transparency.
Exactly. There's no friction. There's only a unified voice.
Mm.
It's millions of minds harmonized into a single cohesive consciousness.
Which I guess explains why their communication method is so incredibly specific in this session.
Yes.
Because Ra notes that they're sending a, quote, narrow band vibration. So Carla had to be tuned with absolute precision.
Right. It's not a broad broadcast.
Yeah. No, it's like if we think of a standard AM/FM radio, Ra isn't broadcasting this loud, static-filled signal that just anyone could pick up. It's highly concentrated, like a laser-focused frequency that required Carla to be in a very specific, dedicated state of mind.
And Ra makes it known that this reception is a somewhat more advanced feat than other channels Don and his group might have studied in the past.
Yeah, they aren't messing around.
No, Ra has arrived for a deeply focused purpose. Don actually asks them straight out about this purpose. And Ra's answer is just entirely uncompromising.
What do they say?
They state, quote, "We are not those of the love or of the light. We are those who are of the law of one."
Wow.
Yeah. In their realm of existence, they explain that paradoxes are solved and all complexities are simplified into absolute unity.
But the interesting thing is, Earth isn't unfamiliar territory to them. Ra reveals they've actually tried to deliver this exact message of unity to humanity before.
Right. They walked among the ancient Egyptians.
Which is wild to think about.
They did. Ra made contact with that society to share this philosophy, the law of one. The fundamental truth that all things are equal because all things are the same singular entity.
But, and this is where it gets heavy, the text outlines a really tragic distortion of that message.
A very human distortion, unfortunately.
Yeah. Ra speaks about how quickly the priests and the people in power took this beautiful philosophy and just warped it.
We really need to look at the mechanics of how that distortion happened because, honestly, it explains so much about human history.
It really does.
Ra's message was that the Creator is in all things, right? Therefore, all things are sacred and unified. Unity, Ra says, cannot abhor any part of itself.
Right, it contains absolute compassion.
Exactly. But the elite priests of that era took the concept of one unified body and they weaponized it.
Like, how so?
Well, they essentially told the populace, yes, we are all one body, but we are the head and you are the feet.
Oh, wow. That is just, it's such a tragic irony.
It really is.
They took a framework meant to dissolve all boundaries and used it to enforce a hypocritical caste system.
Yeah.
It's just a profoundly human reaction to absolute truth. You have this advanced collective offering a unified theory of everything, and the immediate instinct of human power structures is to hoard it.
To lock it away.
Exactly, creating an exclusive elitist religion that locks everyday people out.
And because of that weaponization, Ra actually removed themselves from that era. They refused to participate in the hypocrisy.
Makes sense.
However, they felt this lingering massive responsibility for the distortion. They stayed in this section that they are returning to correct the record.
So that past failure really shapes the entire tone of the 1981 session.
Absolutely. Ra is determined to deliver a pure message to Don Elkins, completely stripped of any religious trappings or dogma or elitist power structures.
And Ra wastes absolutely no time laying down the foundation of that pure message.
They jump right in.
Yeah, they state, quote, "All things, all of life, all the creation is part of one original thought."
They are challenging Don to reevaluate his entire perception of reality right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Ra asks him to consider what a thought actually is, asking, quote, "Was love contained? And was service freely given?" They are methodically dismantling the illusion of a physical universe.
Because Ra tells the group, quote, "You are not part of a material universe. You are part of a thought. You are dancing in a ballroom in which there is no material. You are dancing thoughts."
Dancing thoughts.
I read that and, I immediately hit a wall of cognitive dissonance.
Oh, sure, because we navigate a world of sheer solidity.
Exactly. We bump our knees on tables. We feel the weight of our physical bodies. To be casually informed that our entire physical reality is just a mental projection moving in eccentric patterns.
It's a lot to process.
It really is.
It's a radical reframing of existence, which is why Ra provides a really brilliant, simplistic analogy to help Don and you, the listener, grasp the physics of this illusion.
Oh, the prism analogy.
Yes, Ra uses the concept of a prism. Think of a single, pure beam of white sunlight hitting a glass prism. When it passes through the glass, that singular light breaks apart, projecting an illusion of many separate distinct colors onto a wall. Red, blue, green, yellow.
So if the red light could somehow look at the blue light, it would think, we are entirely different things.
Precisely. They appear distinct. They operate at different frequencies. But it is all still just the original white light, slowed down and bent by the prism.
I see.
Ra is saying that the infinite creator is the white light, and the material universe is the prism. The creator breaks itself into the illusion of billions of separate beings, planets, and experiences.
Wow.
But underneath the illusion of separation, your best friend, your worst enemy, and the chair you're sitting on are all just the exact same source light, experiencing itself at different wavelengths.
I was trying to visualize this earlier, and I thought of how we experience dreams.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, think of the most vivid dream you've ever had. While you're asleep, you walk through a landscape. You talk to a bystander, you run from a villain, you feel the texture of the ground under your feet.
Right, it feels totally real.
Exactly. In that moment, you are absolutely convinced you are interacting with separate, independent entities. But upon waking, the whole illusion collapses.
You realize it was all you.
Yes. You realize the villain, the bystander, the landscape, and even the version of you that was running away were all generated by one single mind. It was all you, just talking to yourself.
That parallel aligns perfectly with Ra's teaching. In a dream, the terror you feel toward the villain is a distortion. It's based on the false belief the villain is separate from you.
Yeah.
Ra states this unequivocally. They say, quote, "You are everything, every being, every emotion, every event, every situation. You are unity."
Okay, let's try to ground this in everyday life for a second.
Let's go.
Because, quote, "You are everything, every being." If you're listening to this and trying to actually internalize that concept, that you are both the prism and the dream, how does that change the way you interact with the world?
It changes everything.
Right, because my first instinct, and honestly Don Elkins' first instinct in the session, is to figure out how to use this knowledge to wake other people up.
Naturally.
Don asks Ra if an individual can act as a catalyst to accelerate planetary consciousness.
He's asking the classic seeker's question, how do I become a catalyst?
Yeah.
How do I save or elevate the people around me?
Exactly. And Ra's response completely upends the premise of the question.
It really does.
Ra answers, quote, Firstly, you must understand that the distinction between yourself and others is not visible to us.
Which is such a profound statement.
Wait, but that sounds almost like a philosophical riddle. If Ra can't see the distinction between me and the person I want to help, how does any growth or teaching happen at all?
Well, Ra introduces the concepts of teach learning and learn teaching.
Okay.
They state that to learn is the exact same as to teach.
Break that down for me, though, because
Yeah.
if I'm sitting quietly in a classroom absorbing a lecture, I am definitely not the one doing the teaching.
Well, from the perspective of the material illusion, sure, you're just a student. But from the perspective of the law of one, the classroom, the teacher, and you, the student, are all the exact same entity.
Okay.
You are all the creator. Therefore, when the teacher imparts knowledge and you absorb it, the universe is simply talking to itself.
Like waking up from the dream.
Exactly. The act of you learning a truth is the universe teaching itself a truth. Because separation is a distortion, any knowledge gained by a single node of consciousness elevates the entire network.
That makes so much sense.
This is why Ra delivers one of the most vital statements in the material. They say, quote, "To serve one is to serve all."
Which has massive implications for the modern seeker.
Huge implications.
I think about you, the listener, looking at the news cycle, feeling the heavy, anxious burden of the world's problems. There's often this crushing guilt that we need to be out there arguing, changing minds, or fixing society.
And this philosophy completely dissolves that savior complex. You cannot simply fix other people, because viewing them as broken, separate entities is a distortion in itself.
Right.
The most profound, mathematically sound effort you can make within a unified consciousness is to weave through your own distortions and do the work on yourself.
Wow.
By evolving your own mind, by embodying love and service in your own quiet life, you're automatically shifting the frequency of the entire whole. Rai puts it plainly. There is nothing else which is of aid in demonstrating the original thought, except your very being.
It's like it lifts an impossible weight off your shoulders.
It really does.
You don't have to carry the entire world. You just have to carry the authenticity of your own being.
Beautifully said.
But, grappling with that scale of reality, holding the awareness of infinite unity while operating a finite physical body, it takes a severe toll.
A very real physical toll.
Yeah, processing this cosmic framework almost broke Carla's physical form during the session.
We see a sharp pivot from the metaphysical to the fiercely practical toward the end of the transcript.
Yeah, the tone shifts completely.
Ra notes that Carla is experiencing significant fatigue. Her physical energy is dropping dangerously low, even though her heart and her will are so open, she would gladly continue channeling if they allowed it.
And Ra suddenly becomes intensely protective of her.
Very much so.
They don't just abruptly sign off and leave them to it. They outline a meticulous, step-by-step protocol for Dawn to safely bring Carla's consciousness back into her physical body.
The precision of their care is really striking.
Right.
Ra instructs Dawn to observe a brief period of silence. Then, he is told to repeat her name until she answers, and Ra issues a stark warning.
Right.
Under no circumstances should she be touched before she responds to her name.
Why the strict warning against touching her? I mean, usually you'd want to hold someone's hand if they're out of it.
Because her consciousness is operating so far outside the bounds of her physical nervous system, a sudden, jarring sensory input, like a physical touch, could severely shock her physical vehicle.
Oh, wow.
She must be gently tethered back through the sound of her own name. Only after she verbally responds is Dawn instructed to lay his hands on her neck region to recharge her physical batteries.
And then there's the instruction regarding the glass of water.
Yes, the water.
Ra doesn't just say, give her some water. The water must be consciously charged with the, quote, love of all present.
That's so specific.
It is. Ra tells Dawn and Jim to place their hands over the glass and actively visualize the power of love entering the water to effect comfort for Carla.
And Ra even scans the room's energy in that moment.
Yeah.
They identify Dawn's specific unique vibration of devotion and love for Carla, which Ra names Alrak.
Alwak. It is just a moment of profound intimacy injected right into the middle of this cosmic dialogue.
It truly is.
Ra, a collective of millions of minds, pauses to recognize the exact frequency of one man's love for his friend.
And I think it's the most beautiful part of the session.
I marvel at that contrast. We spend the entire session discussing the formless nature of the universe, the illusion of matter, the ballroom of dancing thoughts.
Yeah.
And then it all culminates with a group of friends standing quietly in a living room, carefully holding a glass of water, and gently calling a woman's name so she doesn't lose her grip on reality.
It proves that the absolute unity of the cosmos isn't just some abstract theory. It is practically applied in how fiercely and carefully we nurture the people right in front of us. The macrocosm is fully present in the microcosm of that living room.
Before we wrap up our exploration of Session 1, there is a final exchange between Don and Ra that kind of reframes everything we've discussed today.
Yes. Toward the very end, Don's human curiosity definitely gets the better of him.
As it would for any of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He asks Ra about, quote, coming planetary changes. He's looking for prophecy. He's probing for details about massive Earth events, cataclysms, or global shifts.
He wants the big scoop.
Right. And Ra's dismissal of the question is incredibly telling. Ra states, quote, the changes are very, very trivial. We do not concern ourselves with the conditions which bring about harvest.
Trivial. That's the word they use.
Trivial.
I want to leave you, the listener, with that thought to mull over today. We spend so much of our mental energy deeply stressed over massive global events, political machinations, and societal changes.
We constantly worry about the future.
We do. We treat the daily news as the ultimate pressing reality. But what if all of those massive, loud events are just trivial set dressings? If we really take Ra's philosophy to heart, what if the only real work, the only thing of actual substance in this entire illusion is recognizing our shared unity and doing the quiet internal work of love and service?
It completely changes the scale of what deserves your attention.
It really does. It puts everything in perspective.
Thank you for sitting with us. The source text is available at lawophone.info.